Hello, everyone. Welcome to not your regularly scheduled programming. Hopefully it actually does release on the correct time this time, but the content is not quite, what you're probably expecting. I feel like we need to address how bad my scheduling has been for season 2. I do apologize. It was never intended to be so not on time. My life has gotten a little crazy, and I'm finding I have less and less time to dedicate to the podcast. So I thought, we could take a little mid-season episode break for me to fill you in on why that is, what that means for the future of this podcast and everything, so we all are on the same page with expectations here. So if you are unaware, I work at a store that is going out of business. So things are just so chaotic at work. I'm working more hours than I'm used to working. And I'm also trying to figure out, what I'm going to do next with my life, which is kind of on pause right now anyway, because I have to wait for outside factors to fall into place, and then I can figure out where I'll be moving and what kind of job I'm going to be having. All of these wonderful, huge life questions that are just up in the air right now. So I'm not worried about it. I do have complete peace that everything is going to fall into place the way it is meant to. And I'm not worried about that. But it's still a lot for me to handle schedule-wise, just because I'm working a lot more hours. My shifts are a lot more frustrating. It is what it is there. I've also mentioned this a few times on the podcast. I'm working on my debut novel. That is kind of like my main not paying job right now. I also have the podcast, but the book is really the main goal right now. So that is taking what free time I do have. That's taking a lot of it because I have my first real tight deadline I have to write towards right now. So that has also been kind of overwhelming just because of spiritual things that I'll talk about in a moment. And so anyway, things with the podcast keep getting pushed back. It keeps not being the main priority right now. And it will continue, unfortunately, to be that way. Once I move, I will have a full-time job, so I'm going to have even less time to dedicate to other things. That means the podcast will be ending for an indefinite period of time once season 2 is done. I hope to continue it at some point, but I genuinely cannot tell you if that will be a couple months after season 2 ends or years. I truly have no idea because I don't know where I'll be living or what I'll be doing and all of these fun things. So it's very squirrel brain over here, but I assume you've gathered that just from the way I talk and do things. Last episode, oh my gosh, the battery on my camera died at the end, so if you watch the video version, that's why the last 5-ish minutes are just a black screen. Sorry about that. I meant to put that in there and I think I forgot to. Nevertheless, we were gonna talk about Numbers 16 today, which is about God killing people. The heading I wrote in my Bible is the punishment for hubris is death. I think that's baller. I mean, it's very sobering to be like, oh, yes, God is just, and he does have wrath, and he does judge us. But also, I think that's something absolutely worth talking about. So anyway, are we going to talk about this in the future? Maybe. I can make zero promises right now about what the future holds. However, as I was looking over it, because I was planning on recording today, something that did stand out to me is Moses saying, hey, is it not enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister to them? And that he has brought you near, Korah, and all your brothers, sons of Levi, with you, and are you seeking for the priesthood also? And these guys respond, is it not enough that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey? They're talking about Egypt, where they were slaves, to have us die in the wilderness, but you would also lord it over us. Indeed, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor have you given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Would you put out the eyes of these men, we will not come up. So you can read the full thing for the full context of this situation, but it really made me pause and say, what is enough? Like, what is enough for us? And this has kind of been the theme for me the whole last year as I've been pursuing writing especially. Where is my success found? What will be enough for me? Because we all know, oh, if you just want more money and you want more fame and you want more glory, you're always going to want more and more and more and more. So, like, how do I find a threshold in my life that allows for contentment? This is it not enough thing also really stuck out in my head, side note, because I watched The Chosen Part 2 recently, and they did that whole thing about, like, God, if you let us out of Egypt, but you didn't open the Red Sea, it would have been enough. So anyway, that was very powerful for me, because I'm having all of these thoughts in the last year and whatnot. So what is enough for me? Like, where does your enoughness come from? I know that's super eloquent. That's why I listen to this podcast. It has to be in knowing God. If you know God and you love him and you genuinely know him, not you know about him. I've read the whole Bible. I know everything it says. Okay, cool. Do you know who God is though? Like, do you spend time with him? Do you have a relationship with the living God? That's what matters. Like, that is the only measure of success and worth and what have you should have in your life. That is the only thing. Truthfully, that matters. Okay? Here's why. I know what you're going to say. Well, there's other things that matter. Like, are you nice to other people? And are you living a good life? Guys, if you actually have a good relationship with God, literally everything else is going to follow. You're going to be nice to other people. You're going to care about your life and what you're doing. And you're going to be an upright citizen. And, like, it all falls, it's like trickle down morality. I probably use that term totally wrong, so but like if you get the God thing right, you're going to be fine. Because guess what? God's there to convict you. You're in good Christian community who's also there to correct you when you go off the correct path. Like, being right with God, that's the point. So, why am I rambling about that? Thank you for asking. When I was a child, I have a vivid memory of being 10 years old and laying in bed, and I really hated going to school. Not because I didn't like school, but because my social life in school was terrible, basically. I was bullied for like 4.5 years. It was a nightmare. Anyway, I remember being 10 years old, lying in the guest room bed. My mom was doing something in there, and I was like, Mom, isn't the whole point of life that we love God and we tell other people about him? My mom was like, well, yes. Yes, it is. And I said, okay, then why do I have to go to school? Why can't I just, like, tell people about God? Like, shouldn't we be doing that? Shouldn't we be going and telling people about God? Why do I have to go to school? And before you're like, Cassie, just tell people about God at school. I literally went to a Christian school where we were told about God every single day. My mom was kind of at a loss for words, because how do you tell a kid, yes, you understand your calling in life. However, you're still literally 10 years old and the law says that you have to go to school. She's trying to say, like, I think she said something about, like, God puts you in a certain place at a certain time and it prepares you for stuff. I don't know. I just remember having that frustration at a very young age. But ironically, I feel like it was at 10 years old that I most understood my purpose in life. Like, I truthfully do not have the same urgency and conviction of, like, I need to go share the gospel with people as I did as a child. And I think a lot of that in this exact present moment is because I've seen how I went about that in college and after college, and there are certain situations I did not handle the best, and I wish I could have done it differently. And so anyway, now you're like, oh, well, I'm afraid I'm going to make it worse or handle things wrong. And I know I have a tendency to be very pharisaical, what is that word? Like a Pharisee. I'm a hypocrite. And I don't know how to love people well. And so it's just excuse after excuse after excuse. But also I've lived so long in a Christian bubble since going to a Christian college. And then after college, I was very much in a Christian bubble. I still honestly am very much in a Christian bubble, that I've just lost the urgency of people need to know about God, which I feel like a lot of people who only know me on social media will not see that. They'll be like, oh my gosh, you post about your faith, you send a newsletter where you talk about your faith, you do this podcast. Like, yeah, but can I say this? My personal life with God is still... it's been a roller coaster since Kentucky. February 2nd of last year, loved God again, which was a huge moment. I have that video on my YouTube channel. It's the Kentucky plot, how God redirected my life in 2023. The end of that video is where I say I actually love God again, and it was very emotional. Anyway, since then, I went through like 10 months at least of crying once or twice a week, every week, just about how overwhelmed I was that God loved me so sincerely and so unconditionally. The beginning of this year is kind of like God, I kind of feel like God has said, okay, honeymoon phase is over, not because I love you less, but because it's time for you to put in some more work. There was a lot of like rebuilding my trust in God last year, and now I feel like it is time for me to, I don't know, do my part, I guess, in the relationship. Praying has been really hard since Kentucky. Wow, we're getting real vulnerable in this episode. Praying has been something that's really hard. I have been in my Bible pretty regularly. I try to do it 5 times a week, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But regularly, I've been reading the Bible since February, March. It's been over a year, which I did a lot before Kentucky. Like, that was my thing. I read the Bible every day. So I've had to like rebuild that habit as something I want to do and look forward to doing and see as something that's beneficial to me and my relationship with God. Praying has been weird. I don't even know where to start on this one. It has been, since Kentucky, very, 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 very difficult for me to open up emotionally to anyone. That was one thing that God worked with me on when I moved back in with my parents. He said, you're going to be open and vulnerable with your parents. And I said, excuse me? Because it's not like I lied to my parents growing up or was like hiding things from them really. But I wasn't like openly, here's what I'm going through right now and why my life is currently difficult. I did not tell them those things. It was always like, oh, by the way, I had a hard time last year, like after the fact. But anyway, God was like, no, we're not doing that anymore. And I was like, okay. I did kind of fight him on that. It was very much like gritted teeth obedience. And I feel like that's kind of where I've been again at the start of this year. It's very much gritted teeth obedience, because like I want to obey God, but it's more like I want to, because I don't actually want to. And when I spend 20 minutes in prayer at the beginning of my day, and then I have a weirdly amazing day, like I just feel so positive and like everything's gonna be good and fine, and then I realize it's because I spent time with God this morning. I'm like frustrated about it, because how rude that what God says is good for me is good for me. Like, I don't know. It's a very confusing time right now for me spiritually. I'm not gonna lie, okay? Man, the way I'm like, I don't even know if I should post this. Because here's the thing with being on social media is everyone says exactly what I just said about my parents, is that the people you talk to online are not your friends. So the rule is, if you're going to talk about hard things, you either need to frame it in a very specific way, Or you need to talk about them after you've made it to the other side of them. Like, hey, here was a hard time I went through. Here's how I worked through it. Like, you don't talk about your personal drama and failings in real time. And I've never fully followed that. Obviously, you don't talk about your beef with other people publicly. I just think that's a general rule for anyone to live by. But that's why I'm like, should I even be posting this episode? Because this is very vulnerable about, like, where I'm currently at. But I also don't want anyone to be like, she has a bachelor's of Christian education. Like, I could never do a Christian podcast like her. She must be so spiritual and have it all together. Like, listen, guys, I do not. And that's why season 2 is what it is. Look at all these very flawed people who God used anyway, like, who had a purpose in his infinite, like, throughout history plan. All these people messed it up and messed it up some more, but they didn't actually mess it up because God redeems everything. That's how he works. That's what he does. And so I'm saying, like, listen, I'm part of that. I'm not looking at these people like, wow, they really sucked. I'm glad I'm better than them. I'm like, no, listen, I'm right there with them. Like, I all I can do at this point in my life is look at the past way I lived in the last decade, let's just say. We could go further than that if we wanted. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? I just see failure after failure after failure and, like, embarrassing way of handling that situation after another embarrassment. And I'm just like, I don't think I should be allowed to publicly say anything ever. But that doesn't change the fact that, like, God has called me with a specific purpose, and whether or not I think I'm qualified, I have to walk in obedience. Not because I don't have a choice, but because I've seen, okay, my life works out better when I do it God's way. And also, it's not just selfish ambition, like, oh, I want my life to go well, I'll obey God. But also, like, I love God, and I'm trying so hard not to make the same mistakes I did in the past. Like, I want him to be proud of me. He already is. He already loves me more than, like, he can't love me more than he already does. But don't you just want him to be pleased with you on the daily? Like, a renewal of his love for you? I don't know if that's making sense. And I also gotta wrap it up. But listen, some of you have reached out to say how much you love this podcast, which honestly kind of floors me for all the reasons I have previously mentioned. But, like, literally let that be the testimony of, it doesn't matter how unqualified you think you are. God is not limited to your resume. And also, don't let your resume be the thing that defines how much you think you're worth. God does. God's the only thing. Here's how we're wrapping it back up to the point. You do what God tells you to do because he's the one who defines your worth. If you're like, that's too cool for me, that's too lofty of a goal, if God put it in your heart, he's going to see it to completion. So sometimes that doesn't look the way we expect. Like, I'm writing this book. Do I think I'm going to sell 1 million copies of it? No. But I trust that God is going to use it to impact one person's life. And is that enough for me? Yes, because I was faithful and I enjoyed doing it. And now that one person has had an impactful experience. Like, that was worth it. But you have to have that mindset of, like, is it enough? Is it enough? And that's why you have to have God be the source of the enoughness. He's the only thing that can ever be enough. Everything else you're just going to want more and more and more of. And by the way, once you get close to God, you also just want more and more and more of him. But he's the one who can fulfill that every time. And it's not like, oh, I'm not happy or content with knowing God. I mean, it kind of is. I feel like I'm getting too much in the weeds here. You guys, I knew this was going to be a hot mess. When I started, I said, oh boy, I'm not going to talk about number 16. I think I'm just going to talk about something else. And here we are. So anyway, I have no idea where I just left off because I rambled and talked to myself for so long. I don't know what I just said. So I'm just going to end this podcast. I'm so sorry. All that to say, thank you guys so much for those of you who have reached out and said encouraging things. I'm so glad you enjoy this podcast. I will be continuing season 2. If I don't get the episodes quite out on time, please forgive me. I'm trying. I am. It's just a little crazy over here. So, yeah. God is the coolest and the Bible actually slaps. So read the Bible, pray to the Lord, spend some time with him. That's all I can say. Have a happy, oh my gosh, I forgot this is getting posted on Good Friday. I don't know that fits the vibe of Good Friday at all. But, alas, it's what we did. I guess it's better than saying, hey, here's Numbers 26, God kills people on the day that we killed God. But anyway, have a happy Easter. Celebrate that the Lord is still alive. Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta go. Goodbye, everyone. I'll see you in a regular episode. Hopefully, we will pray it's a normal episode the next time, okay? And I'll see you later. Bye.